Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 5 Spheres of Fit podcast. In this podcast, we talk about the 5 spheres, which is a lifestyle strategy that constantly evolves with you. The 5 spheres are your physical, mental, financial, social, and educational spheres. And we want to talk about the interplay between all these spheres when it comes to life. Hi, Noel. Today, we have an interesting topic that I bet most, if not all, parents can relate in some way or another. We want to talk about the way adults speak to children, and not necessarily parents, we could touch on that, but teachers, coaches, relatives, right? I want to talk about talking down to kids, using sarcasm with kids consistently, and the impact that has on children, mentally, physically, educationally. So let's go with you. You take it on now.
What a fun, honestly, what a fun topic for us to
Is
do.
it fun now? Is it?
Well, it's going to be worthwhile and rewarding for the audience, Sabrina. You know, this opens up the Pandora's box because there's specifically in our life, we've had a lot of challenges, I'll call them, because we've been able to overcome pretty much everything, not without a little bit of stress, angst, maybe some anger mixed in there. Um, but I think when you bring up that discussion, that topic, I our social connections, and so I guess we're really in the social sphere with this one.
Yeah.
But our social connections, the way we interact with each other, kind of dictates how we communicate, right? So, husband and wife, whatever those relationships of child, parent, teacher, student, coach, player. And you bring up a couple interesting points. And I think that is what is appropriate. Like, how should, and let's talk about, as you said, teachers and coaches and maybe even mentors, role models, if you will. So, I think as a general rule, you can't utilize sarcasm because if you're a teacher or a coach or a mentor, you're in the position of trying to teach someone something, presumably, yes. And so, if you're utilizing, especially with children, if you're utilizing the tactic of sarcasm, basically what you're telling the individual is, I don't want you to know that I'm laughing at you or frustrated with you, so I'll do it in a more intellectual way that pokes fun and you just don't know it. And
Yeah.
that's patently offensive, Sabrina. And, we've experienced that. And I think you and I both, initially were like, haha, look at the frustration, the way he's dealing with it. So I
Well,
think
let's go back.
those are,
I'm okay sharing some of the story
yeah,
on this podcast. So our daughter was on a soccer club team, and from day one, right? Day one,
yes.
started in August. We are now December. The coach used sarcasm consistently in front of the team, in front of parents, in front of fans, to talk to all the girls on the team. What's that?
And opposing teams.
And opposing
It's
teams. So
there.
I'm putting on my glasses so I can read this to you. Cambridge Dictionary. Sarcasm is using remarks that clearly mean the opposite of what you say in order to hurt someone's feelings or to humorously criticize something. Now, you and we are very protective of our daughter, and I would say even other people. We're the ones that will get up and defend people quickly.
Sure.
And we gave it a pass. We're like, you know what? Maybe this man is going through some stuff. This is why he's frustrated. This is why the sarcasm is there. But then it started becoming, I felt, embarrassing for the children. And he was belittling them. Now, I told you I would never allow this our daughter goes to public school, and I would never allow this from a teacher. Why would I pay someone to talk to my child that way? And
Mhm.
is she actually learning this way? Because she said she and the girls wouldn't even listen to him anymore.
Yeah, Sabrina, that's what happens, I think. Kids are smart. And if they're in an environment and they have the inner confidence to challenge what they probably feel and know, their gut instinct, if we want to call it that they know is not right, yeah, they'll shut it down. And it was interesting, was it not, that when we would talk to Naima about her relationship with her coach, the relationship really was non-existent. He did not ingratiate himself to her in any way. I think she and I say this very humbly, but I like to think as her father and primary male role model or male figure in her life, I've sort of created this aura of what is appropriate and what is not, and what should be expected and what should not be or accepted. And I think Naima gravitated and grasped that, I should say, and applied that to Coach. So when he was sarcastic, I think she kind of figured it out to some
Yeah.
extent. I don't think initially. And to your point, I think when we heard that the other players were kind of tuning him out when he would turn to sarcasm as a way to manage his own frustrations, which is crazy to think. This was, from what I understand, he had 14 years of experience working with kids, but you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
And I think on the sidelines, most of the parents were kind of like, I don't feel like this is right, but I think herd mentality perhaps got the best of them, and no one really spoke up, and that happens, Sabrina, and not
It's funny.
everyone can be a leader
I
there.
just had I just had an epiphany because
Mm,
you are everyone knows you to be a funny and humorous guy.
mm,
But when you use sarcasm in the house, Naima knows that you're kind of in a bad mood.
yeah.
Or you're serious right now, like you're focused on something else. She's like,
Or I'm
let's
just
just
not fun to be, or I'm just not fun to be around. Let's be honest.
yeah,
Let's put it on the
yeah.
table.
So
Start.
imagine a group of or a young girls soccer team ages 10 and 11 around that 4 times a week,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so, I was
Go ahead.
reading in psychology today. I did some research on this.
Mhm.
Sarcasm may affect mental health differently for different individuals.
Mhm.
I asked Naima how she dealt with it, and she's like, I just don't pay attention to him, you
Right.
know? Um,
That goes right back, Sabrina, to what I'm saying about the confidence. So some of the girls have
Mhm.
the inner confidence. Some of them we know did not, and I
Yeah,
think those probably, and we would want to, obviously hope that those kids are getting the assistance they need to understand what's happening. But again, Naima's confidence, I think she was able to just turn it off. And some of the
yeah,
other girls mentioned that, when he would go at them and just kind of say it wasn't just Sabrina. So I'm sarcastic, right? The family knows I use sarcasm, but I don't think I'm utilizing it to be vicious or
mhm.
malicious
Or
or
based on someone's skills
like
or character.
yeah, like I almost use it as a maybe moments of levity or just like
Yeah,
uh, changing it up a little bit, right?
yeah,
But in this scenario and other scenarios that I'm aware of, when I see sarcasm utilized by an adult, it oftentimes is to try to maybe raise themselves up, maybe deal with their own frustrations, and that in this setting, Sabrina, we know that it was wrong, and I'm glad that we certainly said something.
yes,
There were a plethora of other problems that we know existed, but to your point, I think the same thing applies with teachers in the school.
mhm,
If you're trying to reach a young mind and inspire them and truly educate them, how in the world can you use a strategy that breaks them down in a way that they don't know that they're being broken down?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's
So I
intuitive.
wanted to tell
Yes.
you how this affects the physical sphere. Obviously, your mental
Yeah.
and physical spheres are um, connected. So in Naima's case, it didn't affect her mental and physical sphere. It did affect her educational sphere because she's like, he's not making it fun anymore. So I was worried that he's going to take away her love of the sport and she's not going to want to
Right.
play anymore. But I looked up this club team after the fact. I just did like a Google search and reviews, which I should have done before. So that's a note for parents, advice for parents. Do it beforehand. And there was a Yelp review, and the review was so well written. but I felt it was so compassionate. A man said I think it was a 10-year-old boy, would leave practice in tears and had anxiety going to practice because of the sarcasm and the belittling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I know in the past you have said, I can be soft. I'm soft and Naima. So I waited 4 months to make sure that I wasn't being soft. I just didn't. I was teaching my daughter a lesson that right now I can make the choice and teach you that someone does not talk to you that way. When you're older,
Correct.
you'll know the same. But
Correct. And you could say too, Sabrina, he was a little toned down. I mean, you've got to understand that you're instructing, you're coaching 10 and 11-year-old girls as a grown man. And the optics, I thought, were awful. And the I don't want to go into any details about it, but we both understand that last sort of moment where we were like, what? Breaking down the team at halftime and utilizing, pointing out favorites and then being sarcastic about others.
yeah, little
How is
temper
that
tantrums.
going to inspire the best out of the individual? And Sabrina, it was a tie game. So
Yeah,
that was the speech that was delivered at halftime. It 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 reeked of, this is someone who's got some serious problems or is dealing with something currently, and maybe a perfectly normal functioning individual, but has been overwhelmed by something. I don't want to take any shots, but what I recognize is Naima doesn't need to be around that. She doesn't need to
yeah.
be around another grown individual
Mhm.
who's not
Well,
building her
we
in a
chose to
format.
protect her 5 spheres.
Yeah.
We chose to protect them by removing her from that situation.
Providing a safe environment, her physical sphere. For those out there who are, when we talk about our 5 spheres, oftentimes in the physical sphere, we're talking about, your exercise and your eating and your sleep habits, but it's also a safe environment. It's where you physically are. It's why some kids don't learn with the same capacity as others, because their immediate surroundings are not nurturing, comforting, safe, all of those things that you'd hope for a child. And we knew, Sabrina, and I'm happy that you were the one who was just, enough's enough. No
Yeah.
more. We're on that line and said we're out, and that it made a lot
Okay.
of sense. And I
Mhm.
regret the time it took me. I think, Sabrina, from my perspective, I am a little bit harder. I wanted Naima to be in an environment that was safe, obviously, and
Yeah.
because we were always there, every practice, every game, I didn't feel like that she was necessarily in danger, and we could obviously overcome what was said. But I also saw that adversity that she might have to deal with is something we can't just run from. We've
Right.
got to.
Exactly.
So that was
So
that was.
let me read that.
I agree. We should have left earlier.
That takes me to, yeah, because you are going to face adversity, right? And this was a challenge, but he wasn't challenging the girls, he's belittling them, right?
Right.
Then there's a huge difference there. And I for 4 months I thought about, am I being soft? I don't want to raise a snowflake, right?
Right.
Those kept going through my
Right.
head.
Whatever that could actually mean. That's a stupid.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Um.
So let me read to you
Okay. Go ahead.
what
Go ahead.
from Psychology Today.
Okay.
And I'd like to discuss these with you. The pros of using sarcasm consistently with children. There are pros. That Psychology Today says, okay? You are helping your child learn how to engage in a clever banter with another person. Thoughts?
Okay.
Okay.
But
If you don't have thoughts, I can move on to the next one.
okay. I mean, my immediate thought is, well, does that consider where they're positioned?
Yeah.
If it's adult and child, like, I mean, that doesn't seem logical. Um,
I thought the same. I mean,
sure,
I
but
don't hearing sarcasm, banter like that from a
yeah,
teacher um, will help my sense of humor as I grow up. Uh,
yeah.
okay. The
Okay,
next one is you are showing your child how to make light of some of life's challenges and stresses. Okay.
okay. I I think that one, honestly, that's what I do. I think anytime I see a moment where it looks like it might bubble up into something it shouldn't, I try to throw some sarcasm in there. And sometimes, like if I don't understand something, I'll throw sarcasm in there,
Yeah.
just to lighten the mood. So I mean, I'll buy that. That to me
Okay.
makes logical, right?
Yep. Some studies have shown that sarcasm actually fosters creativity. I'm not buying that one.
Well, they do say that this might be self-serving, right? But they do say that people who are sarcastic, generally speaking, are pretty intelligent people because the wit that it
Yes.
takes to create that. Now, I will say this, Sabrina, if used in the right place, because you don't consider someone's intellect if they're browbeating someone or making fun of someone. I mean, that's stupid. But in less in more equal environments where it's two adults and they're just kind of having fun, like the second thing that you had mentioned there about just kind of lightening the mood and that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's fine. And but again, I think we know what's wrong and right. You
Yeah.
know, like if you said, "Oh, this adult teacher is making fun of my kid," but they're doing it sarcastically, like no one's gonna go, "Oh yeah, no, that sounds great. That as long as it's sarcasm, then it should be
Yeah.
fine." Like
You're just promoting
no,
creativity.
yeah, yeah, they're being so creative in the way they make fun of my child. I
Yeah.
love, like said, no one ever. So
Yeah. Okay, here's some cons, okay?
okay,
Sarcasm is typically delivered indirectly and subtly, and as such is not always picked up on by children, and at the same time they may confuse children.
hmm
They may not know what it is that you are really getting at and what your desired outcome goal is. And I think that's a lot what the girls on the soccer team went through. We also had a friend come over recently, and she listens to our podcast, and we said, have your girls ever had an issue like this? She's like, yes. Like, they're one of the girls' dance teacher is exactly like this, and she's wondering what she should do.
yeah. You gotta, if Sabrina, you mentioned, and I think it's okay. Maybe we disagree on certain techniques when we're parenting, or just maybe not necessarily the techniques, but how hard we're going to enforce something. And I know that you tend to be on the softer side when it comes to Naima, and I tend to be a little bit more,
Yeah.
okay, do it, do it, just get it done, do it. I don't, and I think though that's okay. A mixture of that is good. She's not getting necessarily mixed messages. She may want to go to mommy more to ask for certain things because maybe daddy will be a little tougher on her. But in the scenario that you just posed, where um, a young girl, maybe older than 10, 11, a teenager, same thing. If they're in an environment where the sarcasm is constant and consistent, what is the end goal? You just said it. Like, what's the point then of being like that if you're trying to teach something, whether it's soccer or dance or a school setting? It makes no logical sense. So when someone reaches for that, it makes me wonder, like, what is it that you think you're getting from this? And
Yeah.
that, I wish that was the answer that we could have gotten. We were obviously not really permitted to engage, even at the highest levels of the club, which was astounding.
Yeah.
But maybe there's loyalty, amongst the deficient. But it was disappointing to see that. But you and I both can agree, I think, on this one, which is sarcasm has no place when you're trying to teach kids
No, it
environment.
is. These are the
No,
next two
no.
things on the cons list, which is it's a form of passive aggressiveness by the person who's being
Mhm.
sarcastic.
Yep.
And the fourth one, if your child attempts to copy the sarcasm, it's come off as disrespectful because they are a child. So
Sure.
they're learning this disrespect from adults. So, all in all, it's affecting, depending on the child, their mental health,
Mhm.
their physical health, their educational health, because they don't want to be a part of that. These girls
And they're
stopped
missing
listening.
out on instruction,
Yeah.
right?
And then for me, it really was affecting my financial
Yeah,
sphere.
yeah. Uh, to have paid for that, and it is what it is. But I think for us,
It's a learning
we were,
lesson, and we taught our daughter a good one.
yeah, we were. I think we were disappointed, or at least for me. I won't speak for you. You can tell the folks what you think. But for me, Sabrina, I think I was disappointed that I was so gung ho about this particular place and this particular coach and this particular methodology. And it turned out I was just flat out wrong. And I can admit 100% that had I known better, I probably wouldn't have, if I'd taken more time, maybe that's what it was, taken more time to really be selective there. And that's what I would encourage parents to do. You've got to be thinking in the five spheres when it comes to making decisions for your kids. And I know that, Sabrina, we've talked at length about how five spheres really resonates with young people. But I implore and encourage all the parents, whether you're our age, a little younger, a little older, think in those five spheres. How is this going to impact the physical, mental, financial, social, and educational spheres? Because if you don't do that, you're probably gonna wind up in a similar situation that we are in. And I'm stunned to say that we didn't. But that being said, I go back and look at it and I said, well, no, we were just kind of giving shots. We were always there, and it just didn't pan out. But we finally pulled the plug before it was a full year.
Yeah.
And so that
the beauty of this strategy is that you use it for huge challenges, big challenges you have in life. And of course, all challenges are subjective, but also smaller ones, because in the grand scheme of it, having an issue with our daughter's soccer coach is, hashtag first world problems, right? But the consequences can be really big. Talking down to a child, whether you're a teacher, you're a family member, a coach, don't do it. Like, don't allow your child to be a part of
be in
that,
that environment.
because I'm reading, this is not my opinion, I'm reading the research out there, Psychology Today, other research. If you're not sure, do your own research and come up with a solution to remove your child from a situation that could be detrimental to them mentally.
Right. And let's touch on this too, Sabrina, as products, well, of the late 70s, but growing up in the 80s and 90s, as someone who played sports year round competitively. I played club soccer. We were highly successful on the state level, regional level. Like we were good. And as a result of that, I recognized that there's a certain type of coaching that has to happen when you're in competitive soccer. So I'm acknowledging that just if a coach is hard on a player, that's perfectly acceptable. So long as
100%. I'm good with that.
so long as it doesn't offend, I think, the very natural, normal ways of interaction with children that science tells us this makes sense. If you're beating the kid, if you're verbally abusing the kid, that those are all no's. Those are the big X, right? We
Yeah.
get that. This sarcasm kind of borders on that, where we don't know what that impact, Sabrina, might be until maybe sometime later. Maybe it's a loss of passion for something because they're like, oh, I don't want to be in that environment because I know people are like that. And it's like, oh, whoa, whoa, wait, that was just a one off. That was just that one coach, that one teacher, that one mentor. So that's something that I would implore and encourage parents to be thinking about is how can you manage that? And how can you, if you need to remove your child from the situation or talk to the individual and say, hey, look, this is unacceptable. You're impacting my child and, of course, us. And that's a no-no. You've got to
Yeah.
change the strategy because some people will do that, right, Sabrina? People can change.
Sure, absolutely.
This coach is like that. Maybe he's never been told. I mean, clearly from the leadership there, they don't know better. They don't. They're not running a
Yeah.
business in the way that you would think would be all inclusive, ultra success. It's more like, well, whatever fits based on what this one guy is saying, and that's unfortunate, but not our
I wanted
concern.
to finally share with everyone listening. This is from proactivecoaching.info. While sarcasm has a place in our lives, especially when joking around with friends or family, it is something that coaches and teachers should use sparingly, if ever. Why? Because while it may be clever, it can be cruel. It can hurt and confuse kids because it is a message of contradiction. It is criticism without correction, and the criticism is often painfully harsh. Saying something like, nice catch, stone hands, to someone who just dropped a ball serves no purpose other than to express the frustration of the speaker. It can also lead to team members believing that since the coach is using sarcasm to critique and criticize team members, it is okay for them to speak that way too. Too often, coaches who use sarcasm with a biting message don't realize that their words are hurtful to their kids, or worse, don't care that their words are hurtful. Never forget that being laughed at is one of the most painful forms of ridicule, especially for kids. And they posted this from our quote unquote Power of Your Words DVD and in-person presentation. Again, that's proactivecoaching.info. And I mean, that really resonated with me. It made me realize that I made the right decision. Because as a parent, we do question things.
Right.
We question ourselves, we question our decisions. And since we were one of the only parents that actually spoke up, even though we know others felt that way, just reading that gave me some security in my decision.
Yeah, absolutely, Sabrina. The other thing to sort of note from that is you remember during the course of that season just passed, we noted that after all the games and tournaments, I think we played 3 tournaments and 9 league games. We missed 1 game.
4 tournaments.
The coach never had interaction with the coach from the other team.
Yeah.
When I was growing up and as I was playing lots of sports, it was normal, par for the course, that the coaches were talking before and after. Watch NFL games, NBA games, when they're warming up, the coaches are always talking and probably sharing best practices. I mean, that's what normal, successful people try to do is sort of share those best practices. But we never saw that. And I mentioned that to you, and you were like, you know what, Noel, that's so funny. Like, never the moment of after the game, walking up, hey, great game. Just.
So what does that make you think?
But that tells me that there's not a connection there with other people who are in the coaching profession.
Yeah.
This stuff is hard.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to sit here, Sabrina, and have this conversation, let's also acknowledge how difficult it is to coach. I coached multiple teams over the past, I'd say, 4 or 5 years with Naima, and then in my past, having participated in coaching youth soccer and doing some different things, having been around that environment, it is not easy. So let's acknowledge that. And then secondly, let's also acknowledge that just because it's hard doesn't mean that you can get so frustrated that you turn at the very people you're trying to instruct and inspire and treat them with disdain or in a manner that suggests that they're not important. And I think that's the overriding message that I got from myself as on a more mature reflection about all of that unfolded, is that Naima deserved better. And there isn't an instance where I would sacrifice that, because yes, I want her to see adverse moments and get through them, but not like this. This isn't an adverse moment that's like, hey, this is a teaching. No, you say this is unacceptable behavior. Now we'll go help this individual fix it, or we'll leave and we let the environment. So, to the parents, who are more tolerant of it, it's not any sort of knock against them, by the way. And I hope that everyone watches.
They know that their children's 5 spheres maybe can handle it.
But we would want them to know, if they're not, and in all likelihood may not be thinking in the realm of 5 spheres, Sabrina. Mm-hmm. We know this is a relatively new concept.
Exactly right.
We're opening this up and say, hey, wait, so if you were to think in this paradigm, and it really is a paradigm shift, if you think within your 5 spheres, can you arrive at the decision that this is the best environment for my child to succeed in? Some may find that the answer is still yes. I would challenge that. I don't think so, from my humble opinion, and I think you share that too. But hey, I mean, to each their own, I guess, right? Not everyone's going to follow the path, and for some people, they need things differently. And I'm not going to suggest how other people raise their children or what they should do with them. I just know what I want to do, and what you want to do. So.
Well, thank you. This has been a good conversation. And like I said, I bet many parents can resonate with this. And I'd like to end it with sharing that we didn't get angry. Yeah. And, I didn't get mad when you said I can be soft, because I know I can. But this man did affect my mental sphere, because after that last game of the last tournament, I wanted to punch the man, and you held me back. So
There was never a time we never thoroughly enjoyed being there, and I think as two people who are pretty easygoing and love being around others and sharing in others' successes and even challenges, it struck me as odd each and every game. I'm like, why am I not like just jumping for joy? You remember the first couple games, I was like out of my seat, going crazy, having fun,
yeah,
and then by the third game, it was like, this is not really the best feel,
yeah, that's true.
at any
It
rate.
affected us also, but
But we got
thank
through it.
you. We got
Five
through it.
five years got us through it.
Thank you, Noel. This was an important conversation. Thank you,
It's
and we hope everyone out there enjoyed it too and took a little bit of knowledge from it. So thank you, everyone.